Bada bing, bada boom. It is Thursday night, November 19th, 2020. And guess what? We're still here. The world hasn't ended yet at all. Guess what? We're still going to go riding. We're going to still shred. We're going to have an amazing winter. So you know what you need to do? You know what you need to do? You all need to do this and get signed up for an ARI Level 1 training through the Mountain Riding Lab. We're kicking off the show right off the bat with the schedule. We're going to have it up here for you for a minute. Feel free to screenshot it, take some notes. It'll be up there for about a minute. We're going to come back to it. You can get it again later. But yeah, drop it in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from tonight. I've got Matt from Colorado. I've got Tia from California. Holy smokes. Tia, Southern California, you got snow yet? Let me know in the comments. Patrick Fines is here from the Great White North of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Brian Thiebolt is here from Massachusetts. Brian, you got snow out there in the Great East yet? Let me know. Let me know. We're here living large tonight, folks. We're going to have an awesome show. I'm going to predict that this one will probably be shorter than normal just because of the topics we're covering. It's going to be pretty direct, pretty to the point. We're going to get through some good information tonight, and I'll do my best. I will promise to do my best to not drone on and on and on like I always do. But just in case, I apologize in advance if I go too long. All right, guys. JR is here. We got William Singer is in the house from Colorado. ARI 1 and 2 rescue, or ARI 1 and rescue is complete. Congratulations, William. Good job, buddy. I appreciate you doing that. Mr. Patrick Fine says, live large. Speaking of live large, let's bring up the share and win. So anybody who watches the show tonight and shares it, we're still throwing down. We got the Woodies Racing Hoodie and Idaho and potatoes are still up for grabs. All you got to do is follow Woodies Racing on Facebook, watch this show, share it out. Every share counts as an entry into this contest, so get in there and share that out and get going. So snowcross season is just around the corner. Woodies Racing Team out of Minnesota and Articat Racing Team, they're ready to rock and roll and make it happen this winter. So one more thing is don't forget, Live Large merchandise is in the show notes. You can order, merchandise. All the money goes right back into an ARI scholarship program ready for you guys to sign up for and get into a class from an organization just like the Mountain Lab, if not the Mountain Riding Lab. So we'll get into that in just a second. So let me go ahead and drop down all this magic here and introduce my guests. I've got two gentlemen here with me tonight, and in 3, 2, and 1, there they are. All right, gentlemen, how's it going? Oh, I think
everything's well.
I think, Matt, you might still be on mute. Just, double check your.
How's it going, John?
Awesome. Good, buddy. Good. So I'm really excited. I'm going to do quick introductions, let everybody know kind of what we got going on here. And then we'll do kind of just mini intros because I think, Matt, you've been on before. People generally know who you are now. But we'll give you kind of a high level of who you are going on here. And then David. So Matt from the Mountain... I'll just do the intros. How about that? That makes it easy. So Matt from the Mountain Riding Lab is out in Jackson, Wyoming. Yourself and your partner, Will, right? Will Mook, is kind of the partners in crime running the Mountain Riding Lab out there. And they are one of my key partners with the Live Large University Scholarship Program. They are ARI certified motorized recreational providers. Anything else you want to add, Matt? I'm sure there's a ton, but any key highlights you want to touch on to make sure we get you introduced appropriately?
That'll do it for now.
Awesome. And then a special guest, everybody in the comments section here in the notes, everybody give David here a round of applause for last minute invitation. So I was out on a walk tonight, literally, and I thought, how can I make this show even more incredible than it's already going to be? And I thought, why not bring somebody on who's attended the Mountain Riding Lab's Level 1 Avalanche class and has nothing but awesome things to say about it, to come here and give his testimonial for what he's gone through. So we're going to get back to David tonight. But David, say hi. Not to mention, you're one of my Live Large top fans. You've been following the show for a long time. Say hi to everybody.
Good evening, everyone.
It's a nice shirt, by the way. Where'd you get that?
This is one of the originals from Scotts.
I know. I recognize it. I
covet this.
I've got the same one. It's a dry fit. All the other ones now are cotton stuff, but the dry fit ones were nice. I've still got that exact shirt too. So, David, appreciate you kind of following the show literally almost since day one. I mean, you've been watching the show as long as I can remember. It's
long time.
I've been on for 2.5 years now too. But the main focus for tonight's show is just to kind of give you guys an update quick of the schedule again. So, Matt, do we want to tackle the schedule quick right away? I can pop that back up again. You want to talk everybody through it, or is there something else you want to tackle first?
Yeah, sure. Let's just get into it. We just wanted to let everybody know that we have our full course schedule up for the winter season. The ARI motorized program, basically the full decision-making and avalanche terrain course selection there. A good variation of level ones and rescue courses. And we have one ARI 2 that we're going to be doing in March for folks that might be ready for that. I think we're one of the only people that are going to be doing motorized specific ARI 2s this season. Mainly because most people are still kind of in that ARI 1 and avalanche rescue phase. So that's why we're still focusing on that. But I think some people are ready to step it up. So we have one there. We just want to give everybody the dates and locations and things like that. So, if people are thinking about signing up for a course and don't know really where to find it or what the options are, we just want to show everybody what's out there. Basically we're going to be covering most of the winter. We're going to have rescue courses and level ones every month of the winter, or the main winter seasons, December to March. And in 3 different states, Jackson, Wyoming and Togety Pass is where we're going to be kind of doing most of our stuff. But we're also doing some courses over the pass over in Victor, Idaho, kind of the southeast Idaho zone. We got a sweet little spot over there, little secret mountain range that we are going to be operating there. So if people, have been to Togety before, or have been to Jackson, have kind of ridden everything and want to switch it up, so maybe they want to come over the pass and see what we got going on over there. And then we're going to be working with the Missoula Avalanche Center again up in Missoula, Montana, doing some rescue courses and some area ones there.
Awesome. And a question popped up that I think is valid because, we all who watch the show are all over the country, literally. And so one of the questions popped up was, hey, where do we find our quote unquote local ARI schedule, right? And so the awesome part is, here's the thing is there's a ton of people who are riding from the Midwest, who are riding like states surrounding you. It's not that far of a trip. People are traveling all the time anyway. So I would highly encourage folks to attend one of these classes if it's at all possible. If it's way out of the way, I know Logan here was asked the question. He's up here in Washington. It's a little bit of a hike to get out your way. And I would just tell you that, ARI is a great resource. You can go to the ARI schedule, go into their curriculums and their schedules and see what's there. And they have a pretty national schedule available for providers all over the country. And then I know up here in Washington State, also their local Avalanche Center, and I'm sure this is the same in most every Avalanche Center across the country. Most of the local Avalanche Centers will have, certified courses like yours. Matt, you guys must, I'm assuming, partner with local Avalanche Centers to put your classes on their schedule as well, right?
So we work pretty closely with the Bridger Teton Avalanche Center here in Jackson Hole. We do some awareness courses and guide training kind of through their program. And then they're just kind of big supporters of what we do around here. And
exactly.
Up in Montana, it's through the Missoula or the West Central Montana Avalanche Center or Missoula Avalanche that we work with to put on their motorized courses. So that's basically, just doing that motorized curriculum for them. The best way to find all the ARI courses is just go to ARI's website. So that's avtraining.org. Yep. And if you click on the Avalanche courses tab and drop down to the motorized program, it'll have all the motorized providers. So you can start there, and they're pretty well spread out. So, we kind of operate here in Wyoming and Idaho and a little bit in, western Montana. But if you're down in Colorado or you're up in the Northwest, there's a ARI provider for you. So you can start by clicking on the different providers and kind of seeing where they are. Yep. Or you can get the full course list right at the ARI website that has every ARI course that's being offered. Yeah. And you'll scroll through hundreds of them. So you just got to kind of look for your location and then make sure that it's motorized because they'll, in their full list, they'll have all the ski courses in there too.
Yeah, I legitimately had that exact question today in a private message. Somebody else had asked me the question, and that was my recommendation too, is just look for something that's labeled as motorized, because it'll just say ARI level 1, and if you don't know what you're signing up for, you might show up maybe the only one on a snowmobile, and they'll look at you like, what's going on, because they're going to expect you to put skis on and snowshoe up the mountain or ski up the mountain, right? So
right, yeah. So the best way is to start at that provider page under the motorized program, because there's only a handful. So rather than looking at 150 courses that are being offered, start with just the motorized providers and go to their individual websites and see what they have going on.
Exactly. But I look at the list you guys have. I mean, between Missoula, you guys are pretty centrally located in the Rockies, and so it'd be a stretch for someone not to be able to kind of go maybe even a little bit out of their way and make it work out for them. And I think that's actually a great example I'd love to chat about now. Is let's chime in on Dave for a second and not go in too deep with the level 1 description. But Dave, just talk about how you're in New York State. Heaven forbid someone who has to talk about going out of the way for an avalanche course, right?
Well, when I took my level 1, I definitely worked that into the first part of our trip. We had planned to spend 2 weeks in Alpine.
Yeah.
So I came out early ahead of my other riding partners, got acclimated for a couple days, and then took my level 1 through Mountain Riding Lab. And it was a great way to start my trip. And it was great for planning. You can make that a destination and make it purposeful for your trip.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, to come all the way from New York State to go for riding for a week, sometimes 2 weeks, people are doing that too, is just work your avalanche class into your riding trip, right? And if you're going out and riding in the mountains, you're not too far away from Jackson, Wyoming, or some of those other locations that you're looking at too. And so I think it's a great example of how to kind of be innovative and also make sure that the information you have is fresh in your mind as you're going through your rest of your trip. I'm sure, David, you were able to apply a lot of your learnings immediately and put them into action, right?
Every day. We started with a field book in our daily sessions, and every day when I'm in the West now, I find out what the forecast is, make a note in my book, see what the weather's going to be, where people want to ride for the day, and carry that in my pocket. It's like my little Bible.
That was literally, Matt grabbed one. I was literally looking at my desk to see if mine was handy. I know I've got it handy somewhere, but I think it's in the other, in the front entryway. But Matt, tell us about that book, because that's something I don't think I've ever highlighted on the show in any level of depth. And so do you mind talking us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so the ARI Field Book is probably the one tool that is probably most unique to the ARI course, or it's the one thing that we use the most. And I don't know if you could see my background is going to be all weird, but it's called the Backcountry Decision Making Guide.
Okay.
And, that's exactly what we're doing out there, right? Is trying to make decisions in avalanche terrain. And so this is the Bible that we use in our level 1s. And basically this helps us keep track of the repeatable process that we use every day we go riding, in order to make sure that we're, collecting the right data, that we know what's going on out there. That we write down our plan, we stick to our terrain decisions, and it's called a field book because you want to bring it with you. And just like, on the first day of the course, we fill out, it's basically broken down into different days. You have a different page for each riding day. And if you're in a level 1, we'll go more in depth into it.
How many days are in that book? I just need to know, because I got a guy in here named William Singer who he rides a whole crap load of days every year. I wonder if there's enough pages in there for him, or if he's going to need 2 books.
If you ride a lot, you'll probably use more than 1 book.
That's awesome.
I don't know exactly how many pages are in there, but but yeah, what a great way for David to start the first couple pages of his field book in a course, and then continue that process right into the rest of his riding trip.
Yeah. Honestly, think about immediate gratification, right? It's like, rather than going on a course, going home a month later, coming back and going riding, just work it right into your trip. And then, in theory, you're very likely also then, going through your training class with your riding buddies who you're going to be riding with. And now you can count on the fact that not only am I going to be safe and smart about how I'm riding and approaching the terrain, but the people I'm riding with now also have an understanding of what to look for, how to potentially rescue me, the types of things that they're going to learn in the classes we're going to cover in just a minute here. So
I was pleasantly surprised when the rest of the crew got there. Everybody had questions about what I had done for the last 3 days.
Yeah.
And we started that, we started the next morning with the field book and beacons.
Very good. Very good. Matt, you want to tackle next maybe the different types of classes that you guys are offering this year? You have, what is it, companion rescue, level 1, level 2? Let's dive into those, and maybe just touch on for a minute first, kind of making sure people understand the difference between an ARI, not even an ARI, but just an awareness class versus these other classes. Because, frankly, a common mistake that comes up regularly is people go to an awareness class and they think that's their level 1 class because of some of the terminology that's used, the way they're described some places. We won't get into all those dirty details there, but just make sure there's a clear understanding of what an awareness class is versus the other 3 that you're going to be teaching.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of overlap in all these different types of avalanche courses. But what's really been cool lately, at least the last 5 to 10 years, mainly the last 5 years of avalanche education, is it's gotten pretty clear and concise what these different courses are, what they consist of, exactly what's being taught in them. And it's universally adapted across the country, regardless of really like who's teaching it or if it's an area course or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, the awareness courses, the stuff that's going on right now at the dealerships and things like that. Unfortunately, there's not as many this year just because of the format. It's usually a large indoor gathering with a presentation, where you cover a lot of the basic topics and things like that. You might get into some of the rescue gear. You might be even able to practice with some of the stuff. But it's definitely not an on-snow course. It's an awareness. So it's definitely the first step. It's a good place to go pre-season, get in touch with your dealer, get some of those things back in your head, find out where to take an on-snow course. So if there's one going on anytime soon in your area, definitely go to that. I mean, I still go to awareness courses every year, regardless if I'm teaching them or not, just because I want to get back in that avalanche mindset. So even if you've been to them before, go back and listen to it again. You've been all summer doing everything else and you haven't been thinking about these avalanche, the terminology and the concepts and stuff. So awareness is a great place to start if you're brand new to it, but also a good place to get your head back in the game pre-season. But the main on-snow courses is what we really focus on. And the area decision-making and avalanche terrain program consists of area avalanche rescue, which is a 1-day field course. So it's an 8-hour day out on the snow, and it focuses just on the beacon, shovel, probe, and companion rescue skills. So we essentially break those skills down individually. So we focus on, beacon work, and then we focus specifically on probing. We focus specifically on, strategic shoveling and the best ways to dig people out. And then we put it all together, and we have the group work as a team and figure out probably some of the most important things about avalanche rescue is how to work as a well-dialed team. You got to be good with your gear and your skills, but then it really comes down to group management and resource management, how to work under pressure with other people, and solve a problem, because every avalanche is different. It's not like everybody's in the same spot of the deposition zone, or the terrain is the same. There might be one person, there might be more than one person. And so what we do in these courses is set up realistic scenarios where we'll do them over and over again and set up, different scenarios. Maybe one buried beacon over here, maybe, the next time there's 2. And then we put these teams to the test. The group that signs up for the course and is in the course, they get to practice in real life scenarios. But that course is just focused on the rescue component, which we call Plan B, right? Plan B is, what to do if something went wrong. If an avalanche occurred and somebody's buried, you've already screwed up, but you need to know how to react and rescue somebody. And there's very specific skills and things that take practice in order to do that. And the best way to get good at it is to get out on the snow in a rescue course and do it with a team in these realistic scenarios that we set up. Early season when there's no snow, it's great to get your beacon out, check your batteries, throw it in a snowbank, kind of play around a little bit like that, but that's not enough to really get good at it. So that's essentially the avalanche rescue course.
Okay.
And like I said, that's Plan B. Plan A is what we talk about in the level 1, and that's a lot more involved course. It's 3 days long, or I guess this year we're saying 24 hours because we're not really doing it over 3 days anymore. But it's instead of an 8-hour course, it's a 24-hour course, and that really focuses on the bread and butter of the decision making in avalanche terrain.
Nope, that's awesome. So the level 1, do you want to dive in like any deeper on that? Should we maybe have David give us his experience of attending the level 1? Maybe a good time to chime in on that. Does that work for you, Matt?
Yeah, let's have David kind of try to recap what his level 1 was like.
Go ahead, David.
We took it. We were at Togety.
Okay.
That was where we spent our 3 days. We were very fortunate as we moved through the terrain, and Matt and Will pointed out the things that that you wanted to look for. We actually came through some areas with very recent avalanches, so we got to get on the debris field and really kind of analyze the size and scope of the destruction or the strength of that.
Yeah.
We had to move through some areas where there was potential. It wasn't a high potential, but you had to be aware of how to traverse through these areas one at a time, find your safe zones. And I was fortunate. It was a smaller group, but we had 3 people from the Forest Service that were in search and rescue that were very, very well versed on the snow and brought a lot of good experience to the 3 days that we spent.
Yeah,
it was,
so like David
great.
is saying, it's definitely it's a field course as well. We really get out into the terrain. Terrain is a huge component of the level 1. Identifying the terrain, categorizing it, and then being able to recognize it. But that's not the only part. Basically, it's the full process of this, the ARI framework, they call it, basically, where you kind of have these different steps that go into a riding day. So how to plan. So planning involves things like knowing how to check the avalanche forecast, how to interpret the avalanche forecast. So if you've ever read one, reading one, there's probably some terminology and words that you never really see anywhere else. And so one thing that is really important that we teach in level 1 is how to interpret that. So you read this information on the avalanche bulletin that hopefully you have one in your area. How to interpret that and apply it to where you're going riding and understanding what they're talking about. So in order to do that, we have to dive into some of the more scientific aspects of avalanches and the snowpack. So we talk about snowpack structure. We talk about the different types of avalanche problems, and what they mean for us. How to take the weather into account. So not just for how it's going to affect our ride, if it's going to be bluebird or if it's going to be overcast and gray with bad visibility, but how does that affect the conditions avalanche wise? So we really dive into weather and snowpack, how to interpret the forecast. So taking that into account, understanding the terrain that we're going into. So before you even get out there, you can understand the terrain that you're going to. So we teach people how to use resources like online mapping and different things like that to look at terrain. Whether you can read a topo map or not, there's all kinds of cool online resources now, Google Earth, things like that, where you can look at terrain and then how to categorize it and say, that's avalanche terrain, that's not. How hard would it be to avoid this terrain if we need to get into this zone, setting goals for the day. So it's kind of really how to take the avalanche conditions and plug that into your goals in the ride for the day. And then once you get out on the snow, be able to recognize condition changes, terrain on the fly, basically getting your avalanche terrain eyes, like does everyone know what 30-degree slopes look like? You'd be surprised when you get out there that your internal slopometer is not exactly what you think it is. So we practice things like that.
Yeah. Well, practicing something like that makes a huge difference because, I've been in classes where, people just I kind of chuckle as you're saying it because I've been literally in courses where, okay, everybody, what degree slope do you think this is, right? And everybody makes a guess and they shout it out. And, typically most people will, I guess overestimate the slope. They'll look at a slope that's, pretty steep and they'll oh, it's this steep or this steep. And the reality is no, that's only a 30 degree slope. And somebody might say, oh, that looked like a 20-degree slope, right? Or something like that. That would never avalanche. But the reality is a 30-degree slope on a snowmobile isn't that hard to tackle, right? And so it's a pretty easy slope to manage to as far as your riding skill goes to. But as soon as you start dealing with avalanche terrain, it's an eye opener right away to be able to kind of identify that and go oh yeah, this is actually a risky slope that I never would have guessed. So.
Yeah, and speaking of that, it's not just big, huge mountainous open terrain that looks steep that is considered avalanche terrain.
Yeah.
There's some more subtle terrain that can be just as deadly that we talk about too. So
Train traps and stuff like that
right.
too, right? Yeah.
So once we do all that, planning, and you get out and ride, basically what we're demonstrating and teaching people how to do is how to complete their entire day and ride and do everything they wanted to do. But keeping the avalanche conditions in mind, being able to, observe changes in the weather and the conditions on the fly, and then being able to recognize terrain and then work as a group. Group management is a huge part of risk management too.
Yeah.
So, obviously when you're out there in avalanche terrain, you can't just have, your whole group riding around doing whatever they want, not keeping track of each other and things like that. So, part of the ARI framework, and the ride portion of it is, a huge part of that is teamwork and being able to check in with the group, talk about the avalanche conditions, talk about what you're seeing, knowing when to stop before you enter terrain, being able to recognize safe routes, right? So everyone, wants to know, well, I want to go ride in avalanche terrain. So in order to do that, you have to understand, what a safe route is versus a unsafe route. And so those are the kind of things we get out there in practice. So usually on the first and second day, we're kind of demonstrating and coaching everybody through that stuff. And then on the third day or the last ride day, we basically turn it over to the group of students and let them lead. And we kind of just hang back and kind of mentor, but use all the stuff that we just taught them to basically put on their own ride through avalanche terrain in a safe way using all the tools that we just taught. So it's very hands-on. You get to practice everything. And then, in David's case, hopefully by the end of the course, you're ready to go out and do it with your group the next day or the next weekend. And you can bring that to your riding group if they didn't take the course with you, because that would be even better. But
yeah. So David, what was the, going into it, I'm sure you in your mind had some level of idea or expectations of what you were probably getting into. But I would imagine once you were in there, you had some pleasant surprises, some big surprises, things that were the most interesting to you. Like, what were some of the big things that you just walked away going like, holy smokes, I had no idea?
I get it's the appreciation for the terrain itself, and trying to take it in and analyze it.
Okay.
Where you can move through safely. We were really fortunate that the year before I took my level 1, we had a 1 day on snow with Brian Ludstead out of in the Snows out in Laramie. So we had already spent 1 day with the equipment and starting to get a little bit of an idea of the atmosphere, and the 3 days with the mountain riding lab just reinforced it, and it took it even farther. And
that's awesome.
When you're with 6 riders that you've never been with before, that working as a team and relying on one another was a whole nother dynamic. That you had somebody had your back and you had somebody else's, and you called out if you weren't comfortable and went through it as you really got that group dynamic.
Yeah, that's a really big point I want to make sure I point out, because I don't think it gets talked about enough too, is when you're riding in a group that, I'll just throw it out there, doesn't have avalanche training or isn't trained and have experience, and and you have somebody who quote unquote is the ride leader. Normally it's somebody who is bold, assertive, maybe the best rider. There's a lot of things, but doesn't always mean that they're the best leader from managing terrain and expectations of the group, and aren't always creating an environment for people to be encouraged to speak up, right? And I think something that David just said really, really sticks out to me as an opportunity to kind of just make that point here now, is that, part of your avalanche training should be training you also that idea of everybody's voice matters. Everybody in the group should, a good ride leader, frankly, should be asking everybody and getting everybody to speak up. How are you feeling about this? Is this something you're comfortable with? If not, what should we do different? And how's everybody's gut feeling right now? Like, is this something we're all comfortable attacking? If not, somebody speak up, right? So, Matt, you want to touch on that for a minute any further? Or?
Yeah, no, I mean, you basically just outlined another part of the ride safety portion of the ARI framework, and that's kind of, the teamwork as a group. There's a lot of group dynamics that you might not think of, and a lot of times they're called human factors.
Yeah.
You know, how our mind and our ego and things like that can affect our decisions, or lack of ego, or, you know, if you have a group leader that's, you know, pretty alpha and, you know, is always, you know, pretty bold and kind of just calling the shots, and then you have somebody in the group that doesn't really want to speak up, you know, they might put they're basically putting all their decision making into that person, without really knowing how good of a decision they're going to make. And so that's a huge part of the level 1, and basically any Avalanche training that you'll take these days focuses a lot on the person, you know, the people themselves, because it's decisions that get us in trouble, right? It's always all these Avalanche accidents come back to a point where a decision was made, and you know, most times you can call it a bad decision. And when you really dive into that, you start to see how the group dynamics flow. And so that's why we start to really focus on that more. And the idea is that everybody is a team, everybody has a voice, everybody has a veto power if they don't feel comfortable with something.
Exactly.
And that's really important to think about, because, you know, obviously the ideal group is a small group of riders that, you know, trust each other and have all taken Avalanche training and can speak the same language and have the same risk tolerance and things like that. But we know in reality that doesn't happen all the time out there with all of our buddies and the people that we ride with. So being able to realize when maybe you're lacking on the group dynamics, you know, that's another factor of risk, right? It's not just the weather and the avalanche conditions, but if you have a risky group for one reason or another, you have to take that into account in your terrain selection. So in the level 1, we really take all those pieces and you put them together, and you come up with, you know, basically your plan for the day based on all those factors. And that's really what we teach in the level 1 and what the ARI framework is all about.
Yep. No, that's awesome. And so, you know, folks, a lot of folks who I think you've been watching here, I know for a fact have taken their, you know, somebody even called it out at the beginning of the show, is they've got their rescue class, they've got their level 1, the natural evolution. Next is for someone to go to a level 2. Do you want to dive into that one a little bit?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, the level 2 obviously is the next step up from a level 1.
Recreational still, just to be clear, right?
Right,
We're talking about recreational.
So we're on the recreational level 2. And the prerequisites for that are just like you mentioned.
The
so an avalanche rescue course and a level 1. And then it's recommended that you have about a season between your last course and, you know, before you take a level 2. You want to put those things into practice and really get good at it before you dive into level 2. But
makes sense.
What we talk about more in an ARI 2 is more about weather and snowpack, how it affects you know, avalanche processes. We get a little bit more into, you know, the metamorphism of the snowpack and how it changes. And basically what that enables you to do is rely a little bit less on the Avalanche Center bulletin, which is basically giving you the conditions and telling you what's going on, to kind of making those decisions for yourselves. So if you ride in an area that doesn't have an avalanche forecast, you know, you're kind of at a disadvantage, and you need to know more about gathering that data yourself in order to make the decisions. Or if you're just riding in really complex terrain where there's a lot of variability, you know, you're consistently riding in that type of terrain, you know, you're in a mountain range pretty far from any avalanche bulletin, you really need to be able to be self-sufficient with your observations and your understanding of the snowpack and the weather, and to make those good decisions and know what terrain is appropriate or not. So that's, you know, the ARI 2. So the ARI 2, it gets a little bit more into the weeds on snowpack and weather. But if you find that stuff interesting, or if you're riding in complex terrain, which most of us really are, that's what we should all strive to, you know, because you need to be able to recognize things for yourself. The Avalanche Bulletin is a great resource, and that's a good place to get started. But you know, if you're ready to dive more into the snowpack, that's where the ARI 2 comes in.
Awesome. Well, now that we've covered these different classes, what I would encourage anybody in the audience to do that's watching tonight is perfect time right now to drop any and all questions you have in there about your avalanche training, ARI, the mountain riding lab, what Will's favorite color is, anything's on the table, right? And so in the meantime, what I'm going to do is just highlight some of the programs that we've partnered on and some opportunities to get into some of these classes free. Let's talk about that for a minute, right? And so there's two different opportunities here, one of which is a really easy one is, David, you got a pretty sweet shirt on. I know I got a pretty sweet shirt on. I mean, Matt, I like your shirt, but it's not quite as sweet as our Live Large shirts are. It's Climb. I mean, I like Climb. Climb's cool. But, can you buy a Climb shirt and get in to win a free level 1 ARI class? Probably not today, right? And so let's talk about that for a minute. So if you go in the show notes here, you'll see in the show description, there's a website link for the Live Large item order .sale or /sale. You can click in there and you can get access to this shirt just like what David has on. There's all kinds of designs in there. I'm actually going to flash up a quick image. There's another shirt here, one of my new favorites. It's the American flag shirt. It says Live Large on it. And it calls out, kind of what I keep shouting out is what Live Large is all about, which is live life to the fullest, make the most of every day, and make a difference to others, right? And so that shirt design is available. There's hats available. I literally have, I'll be right back. There's a hat right here. So we got hats available and all kinds of other stickers for your trailers, for the side of your sled deck, your big stickers, little stickers, whatever you want. And the cool part is all of that Live Large merchandise on that website, multiple things are happening, right? So all the money that we raise from there, all the profits that would normally, quote unquote, come back to me as the owner of the brand, if you will, are all directly sent to ARI. So ARI gets all that money. I don't even touch it. It goes right from the t-shirt printer to ARI, and it goes into Live Large University, which allows all of you as users to apply for scholarship programs. But before you even get into the scholarship program, which I'm going to cover in detail next, is just by ordering, every single item that you order on that Live Large website, that item order website, gets you in to win one of, right now, 3 prizes that are available. And these aren't little prizes. These are like huge prizes, right, guys? And so the reality is we sell a fair amount of shirts, but it's not like thousands and thousands. So put it this way, your odds of winning are higher than pretty much any other sweepstakes, raffle, lottery you're ever going to get in on, right? It's a pretty good odds you're going to get in to win. It's probably a 1 out of 100 or less chance that you're going to win, right? If you get in and order it. Plus, you're going to get a cool shirt. Plus, you're going to be supporting the Avalanche Center, the training and stuff, right? But we're giving away a level 1 Avalanche class from the Mountain Riding Lab. We're giving away a level 1 riding class from Mad Ends, from the Mountain Skillz. We're giving away a free ride day, a skills ride from Ride Rasmussen Style. So those are the 3 prizes that are up for grabs for any orders that go in between roughly September 1st through December 31st. Early January, I'll be drawing for those, and those are going in. And so the reality is we got 3 prizes, and there'll probably be like 300 items ordered, 500 items ordered. And so, you got a better than 1 in 100 chance of winning one of those prizes. Plus, you get a cool shirt, a cool logo. Now let's talk about where all that money goes to is the Live Large University Scholarship Program. Guess what? Mr. Mountain Riding Lab over here, Matt Shabam, stepped up again. And so we are partnering with the same 4 partners, the Mountain Riding Lab, Tyler's Backcountry Awareness, Ride Rasmussen Style, Mountain Skillz with Mad Ends. So those are the 4 ARI motorized providers as of right now. And they've all stepped up and partnered with us to give us an opportunity to provide back Avalanche scholarships again. All that money that we're raising through the merchandise and through this Avalanche Alliance sweepstakes that's going on, that sweepstakes of the, it's a Polaris Snowmobile, all decked out with about every bell and whistle you can imagine. It's SLP pipes on it, Zebros suspension, Ice Age rails, you name it, it's got it on there. It's got a seat concept seat. It's got, I think, next level handlebars is going on that thing. It's all decked out. That's the grand prize. Prize number 1 is a sled deck. It's a Marlon Sled Deck, one of my favorites personally. And then you have Fly Racing Snow. It's got a $2,000 shopping spree available for this this sweepstakes that's going on, and all that money is being raised for that. So the whole thing just keeps going and going and going, and we all keep feeding each other. But these scholarships are things that if you want to apply, you can go to the ARI website to the scholarships where all this money is going to, that we're raising. Basically that sweepstakes is raising money to support the scholarships as well as my merchandises, right? And so the cool part is what we've started here in this little teeny group in the corner of cyberspace. is now growing, right? We've got Climb on board, we got Fly Racing on board, we got Marlon on board, we got SLP on board, we got Zebros on board. I mean, all these companies have piled on and said, like, we all want to be part of this message that is going to be avalanche safety is part of the ride, right? Like, we are part of the program. Avalanche safety is mainstream, it's cool, whatever you want to call it. We're all in, all of us epic companies that are part of this, right? And so to get in there to these scholarships, if you are somebody who is either an aspiring avalanche educator, that's perfect because that's what ARI's all about. They'll train the trainers. Matt, I know you went through ARI training personally to get trained to be able to train everybody else, right? So absolutely. And so they'll train the trainers. So if you're
totally.
So if you're an aspiring avalanche educator, apply for the scholarship. That's where a lot of the money's going to be going, is to kind of investing in people who are then going back and investing into the motorized community. As a recreationalist, you're also eligible. What we're asking you to do is to go in there and answer a bunch of questions that are there. And our core focus of what we're trying to identify with anybody who applies for one of these scholarships is, how are you going to then turn around and reinvest back into the snowmobile community or the motorized community? It could be snow bikes, snowmobiles, doesn't matter. You know, are you members of a club? Are you riding with many people and teaching and training them how to ride? Are you out there advocating for the sport in some way, shape, or form? But basically, you know, like if you apply and just say, hey, I want to get a level 1, like, that's probably not going to fly. But if you say, hey, I'm a member of a club and I ride with people all the time and I bring people out all the time and I'm out there teaching them, showing them how to do beacon drills, guess what? Now you've got our attention. And so those are the things we're looking for, is how can we take a small investment and continue to expand it and blow it up until everybody in the world is trained who's on a snowmobile out there. That's our end goal, right? Get everybody on a snowmobile or a snow bike backcountry trained, along with all the skiers and snowboarders and snowshoers also. But our focus is motorized, and all the money that we're raising is earmarked. And I want to make that clear. It is earmarked for motorized avalanche education only through ARI. So I'm going to take a breath. We're going to see if there's any questions in the comments. Matt, anything you want to add to anything I just said, or anything you want to reiterate?
Yeah, I just want to say we can't ignore how awesome it is that this year there's so much industry interest and involvement in raising money for snowmobile avalanche education. Yep. I mean, it's really a big deal. You know, I've been doing it for a few years, and there's people that have been doing it a lot longer than I have, and you know, that was kind of a struggle until recently. It was to build this awareness and get the whole snowmobile community, including the brands and the manufacturers and the industry, to really get behind this and bring it to where it is now. So I think we're just super stoked to see it, because, you know, years ago it felt like it was a struggle to get people to pay attention to, you know, the needs of avalanche education. And then second, I just want to emphasize what you said. Besides being a recreational rider looking for avalanche education through this scholarship program, I really encourage people to think about whether they might be interested in becoming instructors. You know, there aren't very many avalanche instructors that are real snowmobilers or that focus on motorized education itself. We're a pretty small group still. And as this gets bigger and there's more providers and more people are getting involved, we're going to need more instructors. I mean, you know, Will and I at the Mountain Riding Lab are kind of at the point where, you know, we have some demand for courses that we just can't do, because we can't be in two places at one time. And, you know, if we had 2 or 3 other instructors that wanted to work for us this winter,
divide and conquer,
you know,
right?
we could, you know, get a lot more people educated. So, you know, if you think that might be for you, maybe look into that instructor training track and getting a scholarship to, you know, get your boxes checked and take an instructor training course, things like that.
Yeah, and if anybody has any specific questions on that, feel free to reach out to myself or to Matt here in the Mountain Riding Lab. You know, we'll get you in the right direction, either answer your questions directly or get you to the people who can. So I've helped people with that type of stuff on a regular basis. So I see Ryan Searle says, I'm working on it, Matt. So Ryan, if you haven't already, you know, encourage you as you're approaching this idea of avalanche education training, you know, pursue it. You know, get in there and apply for the Live Large University scholarships. That's exactly what they're for, is to reinvest back into our community. And I love it when I see names of people who I know personally are investing in the sport and doing good things in the community. When their names pop up in there, it's really easy for me to tell, you know, Vicky at ARI, like, hey, they got my vote, right? It's a no-brainer. And so then she'll look at it and review it. And so that's the thing. It's like, I'm part of the voting process. ARI is part of the voting process, their board and stuff. And we make our recommendations there, and it's based on our budget, right? And so with that, I'll just tell everybody, is like, if you haven't already, and even if you have, go in and do it again. buy more tickets for that sweepstakes, because that's the fastest way we're going to grow that bucket of money the fastest. Like, I can only sell so many t-shirts, right? Like the bucket and the small, it's going to be small. I'm going to give away maybe 3 or 4 Avalanche courses if we're lucky every quarter. But with this sweepstakes, I mean, we're at the point where we've raised $80,000 so far, right? Minus expenses, we're going to be able to give away dozens and dozens and dozens of Avalanche courses, hopefully, if we do this right. And so let's make that into hundreds and hundreds if we can keep making that number grow. Because invest in yourselves by investing in all these cool things that are going on. And I'm sure by now people are tired of like seeing John Ferrian's face all over the place. But guess what, guys? Like, we're not going away. We're going to continue to talk about this until we've touched everybody. And get everybody out there. So I've got a question. It's not directly related to the show. I'm going to throw it out at you, Matt, see if it's something you're willing to take on. If not, we can pass on it. But, do you have any input on, the reliability and accuracy of different brands of Avalanche transceivers? May or may not be a controversial topic. I know all of us in the industry, we like to say, like, I love all of them, right? But, you've got some personal experience with a lot of different ones, and you've seen it in class. Are there any that are, that are really, really good that stand out to you that you'd love to kind of just highlight?
Well, before I get too specific on the brands or the types, I think just the main thing to keep in mind is buy the best one you can afford, and the best one that you know how to use, and then practice with it. They're all a little different. They have different ranges. They have different features. Some are more advanced than others, but they all basically do the same thing. What you just want to avoid is outdated technology. So you want to make sure that you get a 3 antenna transceiver, that it's the latest model that you can afford. And then when you get it, just practice with it, and you'll be the best with the transceiver that you know how to use the best. They're all pretty good. Some, like the BCA beacons that I use most of the time, are known for their simplicity and their speed. So it's just kind of no nonsense, here's the direction, here's the distance, go get it done type of thing. And then some more advanced beacons might have a super long range with some extra features for multiple burials, and they have a way, like a screen that has a lot more information on it that you need to process or things like that. So that's going to take different practice than, like the BCA one, which is just simple and fast. So, as an Avalanche educator, I have, the transceiver that I use every day, which is a BCA Tracker 3. But that doesn't mean that's the only one you should use. I think you should just kind of read the features, talk to somebody about what's most important or what this one has that you're looking at, and then just practice with that one.
Yeah. And so I'm actually in a really cool position here too, where I've actually right now got access to, and through this show and stuff too, like I've got people who, between what I'm doing here, through the Washington State Snowmobile Association, through NWAC, I've got people sending me equipment to try and test and do some comparisons with too. And so I'm planning on very soon, Ryan Ostrom, who just asked that question, actually, believe it or not, have plans to ride with him this coming Saturday. And if Ryan, if you're up for it, we can do some of this testing on our ride. I'll bring him with, but I've got some brand new top-of-the-line Mammut beacons, the Baravox beacons that are available. I've got some brand new Ortavox beacons that are going on, and then I've got the BCA beacons that I've been using the last few years. I've got Tracker 2s and Tracker 3s, and we can do a showdown, do a couple little videos, and see how it goes. We'll get out, away from any interference or, that's kind of thing I've done, just in the ball fields around me and stuff too, but I'm always nervous that maybe there's electrical interference that I just don't even know about, where I want to get on the backcountry and do some legit testing with that, and plan to do so possibly as soon as this weekend, and we'll try to post some videos thereafter and see what happens.
Yeah, even if you practice somewhere where there's interference, that's always a good thing, because you'll know what it looks like when it shows up on your transceiver and is messing with it a little bit. So don't be afraid to see what happens when you're near a power line. There's also a website that I think has a pretty extensive, I think it's like beaconreviews.com or something. I don't even know who runs it, but it seems to be pretty up to date and thorough and objective, and it's got every beacon ever made on there. So I think that's an online resource that people could start at. But
fair enough. So Ryan said, let's do it. So if we got any other questions, drop those in right now. Says Kyle Franklin says, I need to apply for for the scholarship to become a local instructor. So Kyle Franklin, so just so you know, you don't have to apply for the scholarship. You could literally attend classes and pay for them and go through the instructor training. There's nothing slowing you down from just pursuing that on your own. The scholarship program is designed to help people financially who may need assistance in getting into it. So, you know, I can speak for Matt because it's always one of those topics that's weird to talk about when it's your own job. But like, let's be honest, you know, nobody's getting rich being an avalanche educator. Like, I'm just going to say it out loud, right? It's one of the things that, you know, it's a large time and financial investment to get to doing what Matt is doing. But at the end of the day, nobody's getting rich to it. It's a job of passion. It's a work of passion, and it's important to be done. He's making a living at it because we're doing enough of it and we're promoting it. But at the end of the day, he's not driving a brand new Ferrari around town. So
I would stop short of saying I'm even making a living at it. I do have other jobs.
Exactly. No, I hear you.
But,
And that's most avalanche educators. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's you know, it's part of their multiple career paths that they're probably juggling in order to keep things going. So, but yeah, so the reality is there is a need for these scholarships in the industry, and I definitely want to make sure that we're making an impact in doing that and doing it, you know, because bottom line is, like, me spending time here doing this, it's like we're investing in ourselves. We're spending the time getting the training so that instructors are there ready to train us so that we're ready to go in the backcountry and we're safe. So
yeah,
awesome.
And just a heads up, yeah, you know, anybody that's looking at getting on the path to becoming an instructor, you still start with the recreational courses. So
yeah,
you know, an avalanche rescue course and a level 1 will be the first 2 courses you need, and then from there you'll move over to the pro side. You'll start taking a pro 1, and when you get to that level, then you can start taking the individual ARI specific, you know, instructor training and course leader training courses. So it does take a few years to get up to that point, but everybody should start with a rescue course and a level 1,
awesome.
no matter who you are.
Yep, awesome.
And I just wanted to ask David a question.
Sure.
You know, because sometimes I'm trying to get people to come to our courses, but you know, if I was just a regular rider that was on the fence about taking an avalanche course because maybe I don't want to sit in a classroom or anything like that, or I feel like it's going to be boring, you know, what would you tell somebody that's riding in the mountains and is kind of on the fence about taking a course?
Well, I guess when you think about it's an you make the investment. So I made the investment in the 3 days. It was almost like I had a guide. I had 2 personal guides for 3 days, and I was being educated in the awareness of the environment I was riding in. So it was money well spent. It was a great experience, and it's like having a guide for 3 days.
It's awesome.
Especially in a new area where I'd never ridden before.
Yeah.
So what better way to find my way around Togety than with the 2 of you?
Very good, very good. All right, Matt, I think we're, and David, I think we're both ready to, all 3 of us ready to kind of wrap this up, but want to do one quick round robin to see if there's any final thoughts we want to close with. So, David, why don't you go first? Any final thoughts you want to leave everybody with?
Well, I guess the only other tool that I've brought to my toolbox, and I've started about this time along with my field guide, is because I ride out of Alpine, I subscribe to the Bridger Teton forecast daily, and I start just kind of watching it so that when I get out there in February, I've got a little idea of what's taken place over the last 2 months. And people can do that for wherever they're going to ride. That's the other thing I'd bring to.
That's a really good point, David. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. Unfortunately, I haven't ridden yet this season, but I've been reading the Avalanche forecast since it started coming out for at least 2 or 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
It's just a good idea to just keep that mental note of the season in the back of your head as things develop, especially early season. The snow that falls now is going to be our base for a while. And so, you know, that's one thing we talk a lot about in the level 1 is tracking the season's conditions. Even if you're not riding for a couple of weeks, if you subscribe to your local Avalanche Center, usually you can get an email every day with a summary of the snowpack, or just make it part of your morning routine, even if you're not going riding. It helps you really just keep track of things like that. So next time you do go riding, you're not just showing up and being like, okay, what happened while I was gone, you know?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And so one more quick scan here. I've got the schedule back up just for a few seconds here, just to remind everybody. These are some of the dates that are there. And Matt, if anybody wants to reach out to you to book these, like, why don't you just shout out the website link too?
Yeah, so it's pretty easy to book. You can just go to our website, themountainridinglab.com. You can scroll down to Avalanche courses, select which category you want, and then you'll have a drop-down box for the different dates and locations. So basically, once you pick your date and location, you can sign up. And then the only difference is for those Missoula courses, they're being run through the MissoulaAvalanche.org website. So if you're going to join us up in Montana, you'll want to sign up at their website. But everything else is just can be found at themountainridinglab.com. We have, full course descriptions, dates, things like that. As soon as you sign up, you'll get an email confirmation. And then usually we follow up with emails ahead of time leading up to the course with some pre-course materials. And we just wanted to mention too, I guess, before we go, that we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We're going to be replacing our indoor classroom sessions with a little bit of online learning. So basically you'll be getting links to some online courses that you could take at your own pace to kind of get a general knowledge base. And then Will and I, as the instructors, will have 2 online Zoom meetings with the class leading up to your field days. So a level 1, which is typically 3 days, where we meet in the classroom in the morning and then go riding in the afternoon. It's going to be a little bit different this year. We're going to meet online in the evening, the week leading up to your course. And then on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we're just going to go ride and do all the field portions. So it's actually kind of nice. You don't have to commit physically to as many days, but you're going to get the same amount of content and the same amount of instruction. And then on those days we do ride, we just meet right at the trailhead and go ride all day. So we're actually going to probably burn a little bit more gas this season.
Well, I was going to say, nice. if I'm coming from out of state and I'm going to book a ride, like now instead of having to take 3 days out of my 7-day vacation, now I've only got to take 2 out of it in order to do the avalanche training. Yeah. But I would, even as I say it out loud, I'm catching myself and telling everybody, like, don't think that way, right? Don't think of it as taking days out of your riding. It's investing days into your riding. That's the way I want you to think about it, because that's really what it is. So.
Well, like David said, these places that we put on these courses, Will and I used to be guides for many years before we just started focusing on this. So we know the areas really well. So when we do go out and ride,
finding some fresh pow.
Yeah, we're definitely going out to find the best riding we can. We're not just going out to the meadows near the trail to get it done. We're going to some cool places and trying to find the best snow we can at the same time. Yeah. So.
I mean, if you're gonna get the best avalanche training, you might as well do it in the best snow and the best locations with the best guides, right?
Yeah, every day.
Awesome. All right, well, let's go ahead and any final thoughts? Last chance. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up then, and I'll just tell everybody, thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, please share the show out. Great information. Let's help get the schedule out and get these classes booked up. If these classes are getting booked up, we know we're riding safer in the backcountry. We're having an amazing time. And final thoughts is God bless everybody and live large. Have a great night.
Thank you, guys.